yet.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
It's no rush. No rush.
I don't know. Let's see.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Now we got a little cosmic activity going on. I'm going to, since we're on Zoom, I can't see all the comments from the different platforms, but I'm going to turn on my page.
Okay.
That's where most of the traffic goes, or about half and half with YouTube.
Yeah. Well, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah. Yeah. This is typical Soulogy style. We get to know each other in front of our brothers and sisters and just keep it spontaneous, intuitive, creative, imaginative, and depending on what we're talking about or doing, courageous.
Yeah. So we can talk about anything, right? Or what? How do you like to talk about it all, right?
Yeah, I mean, the real focus of the show is, we call it the hero's journey, the transformation, because there's so much code in it, and then also just what's happening right now. Because that's really where we're at now, right? I mean, we all have this convergence of similar things, transmissions, downloads, channelings, everything, light language. I mean, everything is just converging. And so, we just have a conversation, and you're welcome to ask questions as well. It's not.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm just, I've seen your shows a few times, but I'm wearing Rainbow Warriors. I like to talk about and bring that into perspective for people. So I'm wearing this to honor the Rainbow Warriors. Wow. Okay.
Let me see. I think we still got another. Let me just make sure I can't really tell. We'll give it about another 20, 30 seconds and then we'll.
Okay.
But yeah, we can start now. Heck, whatever. And everything is on the replay anyway. So yeah, first of all, let me just welcome you to Soul Speaks 5D. Thank you for coming in and honoring us with your presence and sharing space with us. You're in Indiana.
Yes.
I'm a big basketball nut, so I totally can get off on Indiana.
Oh, I'm not at all. I don't even.
I mean, that's just me personally, like playing. I mean, I don't play anymore. I'd love to, but no, I don't watch sports anymore. I can't, so many things are just leaving. I mean, I look at this MMA stuff and even boxing. I'm like, man, that just doesn't jive,
Oh yeah. I never liked that either. I've never gotten into the sports, but I was going to say, I don't know if they heard, I was wearing this scarf to honor the Rainbow Warriors and say hi to all the Rainbow Warriors watching. And so I'm excited to be here and thank you so much.
Absolutely. We'll talk about Rainbow Warriors because I'm not really up to speed on that, or not, at least not to my conscious awareness, or at least maybe it's a different term or something like that. But I like to ask people when they come on is have you always been this weird, or were you born this way?
I believe I was born this way, and then we are brainwashed and conformed into being somebody that we're not, and like a robot, or my good friend that calls people robotoids. She has the robotoids, but some of them really are soulless, and like about 17 to 20% of people we see in the Matrix are actually, not a real soul, and they're just a program.
That's interesting. Let's start with that.
Oh, okay.
So let me preface it. Okay.
Okay.
So, and I just want to say, I respect everybody's reality. When I woke up, that was one of the first things I was given was, everybody's reality is true and relevant. Now, so there's, you have, our beautiful brother just elevated and expanded, Franco Di Nicola, last week. And one of the things that he talked about was, what did he call them? Extras. Called them extras. Dolores Cannon called them, I think, background people.
Yes.
Edgar Cayce referred to them. Jason Estes calls them NPCs. And depending on who you're talking about, or who you're talking to, and I think we're probably talking about the same thing, but we'll find out. Somewhere between 30 and 40%. My 3D brain just left me. I think it's the other way around. No. Somewhere between 30 and 40%, depending on those four that I just mentioned. You mentioned 17 to 20. Now, the distinction here is that I come from the school of thought that everything is the God goddess substance. I don't believe in AI. You know, if we're going to make the class, and this is just me, my opinion. If we're going to make the distinction that something's AI, that's maybe from this realm's perspective. But if we're going to make the distinction something's AI, I'm AI.
Yes.
In terms of, you know, if we look at it from the higher perspective. But one of the things that that's these folks talk about one way or the other is that this group that we're talking about, which may or may not be what you're talking about, is okay. It actually shares a you know, and again, these are human words, so it's a bit futile to try to explain it, but that these entities, or whatever you want to call them, share a common soul. You know, as some people, for instance, they say that the animal kingdoms, specific species, they have one soul, like a collective beehive intelligence. Now, these extras, or whatever we want to call them, they are part of the landscape. They are energy. They are influenced both by, let's just say, the realms matrix as well as the overall matrix, and so on. So it's really just energy in the field. But I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. That's why we get together here. We're all here to expand. This is basically a session, and we're all students and teachers. But yeah, what are your thoughts on, now, what did you call them? And go ahead and go into what
I like to call them extras. My girlfriend calls them robotoids. But, you know, I'm a quantum healer. So Dolores Cannon, I definitely, you know, vibe with her and respect and honor her. And also, you mentioned Edgar Cayce. I was married to Edgar Cayce in past life. And he was one of my first that I found in my awakening that helped me bridge Christianity to spirituality and know that, you know, I wasn't offending God by studying these things and going that path. But yeah, the Matrix is one of my favorite topics to talk about just in general, and how, you know, the Rainbow Warriors, like I said, light workers, star seeds, these are all essentially the same thing, and, you know, just different terminology. I, you know, tend to align mostly with light worker and Rainbow Warrior, but I'm a star seed too. I'm all these things. But yes, the Matrix, you know, it lines up with the simulation theory, of course. And what I think the programs are, from what I've learned, is, again, yeah, they could be a collective consciousness. I'm not sure if they have a soul from how they've been described to me, or they're manipulated, they're puppets, they're, you know, empty, from how I understand them. Again, you know, I could be wrong on that, but I do believe in them, that they exist. And, you know, we can also talk about the Agent Smith. Have you heard of this?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have, and I want you to continue on those. I just, again, I look at, if we look at ourselves, those that might be classified with a soul, we've been manipulated, we've been controlled. So, you know, I mean, so it's just, I guess, a matter of what perspective you're going to look at it from. But yes, I can understand what you're saying, the simulation, and I use plural, simulations, because they're you know, they're happening at the same time. But yeah, I can see that. Now let me ask you this: what is the significance in your mind of these extras? Why are they context? Why are they a point of context or consideration?
Well, they're players as a game, and they have specific roles, but that's it. They're one-dimensional, basically. I had a client that, and this was what really opened my mind to them, that she had a baby with one of the extras. And that came through in her quantum session, and they're telling her, you know, this man that's destroying your life and was her huge dark night of the soul for so many years, or like, he's not even real. And they described him as Drop Dead Fred, if you know that movie.
I've seen it. I love that movie.
So that's literally what the spirit told us is that the higher self told us, he's literally Drop Dead Fred, and he appeared when you needed him So he was there to teach her a major lesson. So now she's aligned and ready to meet her twin because she got through that big test, and he was there essentially to test her, and to help her, you know, find her power. And that's what she's done since this session, and grown so much.
Yeah. And so I look at something like that, and I can look at, you know, my own relationship with Morgan, and anything else, anyone else I've come across that would have a soul, and it's the same thing. Like they're there. This is all me. You know, we can talk about, let's say, you know, some people talk about having to protect themselves. I don't agree with it, but you know, if I am attacked and I adopt their nomenclature, that's something I presented for myself from the higher self or soul level. So yeah, I can see that. Yeah, one of the things I wonder about we've had it wasn't a QHHT, because that's what you're into, right? Dolores Ken?
Mine is called BQH, and I have my own technique I haven't named yet, actually, too. But beyond quantum healing is just an evolution of
No, I got you. Yeah, we had BQH or BQHT. I don't know which one was Candace. Candace
Owens, or no,
Candace. You know what I'm talking about. She was a disciple of Dolores, and she formed her own. But we had one of our friends who had gone through it, and we actually aired it. We aired a two-part broadcast of it. So, but it's interesting to me because, you know, we all do our own energy work in our own ways. You know, I'm married to a practitioner who's got her own ways, and you know, I've delved into that with her deeply, and then in my own ways. But you know, I find as time's gone on that as I've expanded, as I've watched the field and people I talk to, there is, you know, the questions that we have, the waking up that we experience was really kind of specific to our experience as we knew it in this realm. But I've experienced now going into the higher realms, and you know, people use the word sovereignty, and of course all these words, they lose that they get these other connotations on them. But just for the sake of the discussion, claiming my sovereignty in every dimension that I go into. In other words, questioning everything and anything that presents itself, and not just taking it as a gospel. Have you had that type of thought process? Have you ever been in these sessions and gone, who am I talking to?
Yeah, well, I have discernment as you do. This is, you know, something key to awakening. It is really trusting your intuition and your discernment. And I'm extremely empathic, so I can feel the energy of evil spirits or low vibrational spirits or entities. I have, you know, on my YouTube clients where people had demons, and they're saying scary things. They're trying to intimidate me. They, you know, whatever it is, like they try to intimidate, you know, others and keep us in fear vibration. But really, I have no fear. I know that I am protected. I know I'm not lowering my shield by being afraid. I'm not, you know, I would laugh off their threats or whatever they try to do. But questioning everything I've done since a young age, when things didn't resonate with me or make sense. I was raised Catholic, and you know, the main things that I got out of that religion were, I love that they kept the saints and the angels alive and Mother Mary. But again, so many problems with the Catholic Church we can go into, of course. But
so many problems with everything.
Well, yes. Well,
so many problems with everything.
Well, let's count our blessings. You know? Yeah, let's count our blessings instead.
Absolutely. No, but yeah, you know, and now that we're expanding, especially over the last year and a half, this whole you know, atmosphere of good and evil. Okay, like I don't believe in evil. You know, this has been with me since you know, I reawoke 10 years ago. I watched this evolve in myself, and I'm watching it happen in the collective, where we know unity consciousness is unity consciousness. There's no exceptions. We may not understand it, but it seems like that there is a growing awareness and actualization of taking on those things that are polar opposite of us, and beginning to integrate those into a 0-point field. Have you been sensitive to that? Has that been like or unlike your experience?
Well, I'm sensitive to most things. I guess I'm kind of lost for it. If I've been sensitive to the fact that I believe there is evil in a sense in this paradigm that we're in,
Mm-hmm.
and that things come to play evil and come to play dark to teach us lessons.
Yeah.
But so much of studying into Hinduism and even old Sumerian and going back to the gods that were all over and all different ages and their names just changed basically. We understand like the gods did evil things at times, that they were evolving souls too. And also from my awakening, when I had Ganesh appeared to me a few times, and the second time he was very intimidating. Like I bowed down to him and I was like, I don't want to offend him, and that he sent me on a test, on a mission, and I wanted to fulfill it and make him happy. But it's like the angels and demons are here to teach us lessons, and part of the matrix, that when we learn to access these beings and know and keep going deeper into our journey, there's always another layer of like truth that comes with that, and why there's levels of awakening is what I try to teach people. Like people when they say they're woke or whatever because they know there's conspiracies, I'm like, there's so much more to know, and you got to keep going, and the rabbit hole is like infinite.
It is infinite. It is infinite. Yeah. And I think that's really kind of what I'm part of what I'm alluding to, is that it's far beyond what we have limited our horizons, like what's behind this and what's behind that. Have you ever heard of Matthias de Stefano?
Yes. Stefano de.
Yeah. Stefano. Yeah. Okay. So, he's got that series into Initiation, and he also has a previous series which is just 3 episodes, which is called Journey to Remembering. I was watching Journey to Remembering, and it was actually covering like from 2008 to 2013, and it was phenomenal. The template, the pattern of his awakening and his purposes and just the way the life flows is very similar to all of ours. We get this download, we get this guidance, we start doing things that are not normal by society's standards. We have to live in the present. It's the same thing. But one of the things that he said that I thought was really interesting is he said, I am not a light worker. I am a transformer. I work with all energy put in front of me. And this was coming straight from guides. And he documents it in that first 3-part series, where he was actually having sit downs in a cave or in a sacred place with apparitions, which some of us have experienced as well, that were telling him very clearly, you're here to work with these dark energies. They have the same innate understanding and desire from the let's just say the God substance that they are. They want to unify. They want to elevate. They want to expand.
Like the reptilians that we're hearing about now, that they want to go against, it's the elite. They are leaders, the top echelon of the reptilians. They're reptilians that are like us, that are in hiding and want to be free as well, that are slaves as well, kind of.
Yeah. Well, or another way to put it is like, how do we know or not know that these people or these folks, let's just call them the 1%, they're not getting their own guidance. They're not coming from a perspective of, say, we're doing this, we understand we're playing the dark role, and we understand how that works from the higher perspective. I'll give you another example. About 1.5 years ago, my wife and I, we connect every night when we're together, and we had some reptilians come into our bedroom. And they came in, and there was a great atmosphere of reverence and honor. And they spoke to us and they said, look, humanity has raised its consciousness to a level now that we're no longer needed. We didn't, this was what our purpose was in this particular experience on Earth. And it wasn't always easy. And it was almost like, hey, we're glad it's over. But it was very much like I would draw the analogy of like a martial arts, competition where the two adversaries, so to speak, have respect and honor for each other. But again, it was very clear to me that they understood what their role was, how it worked in the whole yin yang. And now that was complete, which at that time, that was just right before COVID hit. So that made kind of sense in the trajectory of our expansion. But yeah, something like that. I mean, how do we know that they're not, these polarities are not pulling from the same source? I don't know.
Well, there's questions among questions on, infinite questions that we can have. And again, that's why it's overwhelming for people sometimes to, go through all of these and all these different theories. I've had a tall, like 8-foot gray bean in my kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
I found a goblin in my house like a month ago. Appeared to me, was crawling down my wall and then under my bed, and then I ended up communicating with it, and it's not evil either, like people would think.
Right.
It's here it explained, I asked it all these questions. Where are you from? It said from inside the earth, and it was 300 years old, and they don't wear clothes, and they're like 2 to 14. They're kind of like Harry Potter. I actually call him Dobby. I was like, can I call you Dobby? Because its name was too hard. And, but, it's just interesting to talk about, because I told the goblin, I said, well, people need to know about you and what you guys do. And it's not that it's an evil entity. He did flatten 4 of my tires, though, to teach me a lesson. And, but I respect it and I understand it. And I know its purpose is to make sure we stay tidy. And sometimes they just spectate, and other times they test us when they're called to.
Yeah.
And he said that he works for the light, though. He said he used to be a slave for the dark, and he said he works for the light, which was interesting too.
Yeah, it is interesting. One of the other things that I'm actually rewatching some of these episodes from last year, and one of the things he talks about is I'm talking about Mateus. He talks about the different dimensions and how we hear this, that they're all in the same place and it's a frequency thing. But that when you get into and you tap into, let's just say, the higher dimension, or you pull it down or whatever, that the whole idea of the soul is to see everything from every possible perspective, which lends to the simulation theory and reality, right? And that if you played, let's just say I play a role today, and I'm a light, whatever I want to call myself, I'm at one end of the spectrum, that I will be the polar opposite, or I have been, which then again changes the perspective of the human experience. If we're going to be multidimensional, then we're going to have to let go of these 3D constraints, which are really belief systems, suggestions, and distortions, right?
Well, propaganda everywhere. That's what to say, that the propaganda machine goes everywhere at all times. Like, we used to just have cable TV when we were younger, and now kids have an instant screen of crack. And the phones are a weapon too. I was given a vision about the phones, and they're showing it literally drains their life force. They show me this, and then they showed me like a web all over the earth. There are these webs, and I saw myself crawling out of one web, and then turns out I crawled into another. So there are just traps everywhere in the matrix, that, addictions and anything that takes your vibration and your power away and lowers it. Because this is all an energy system. They want our energy. And
they are who? They are who? They are us?
Oh, well, they are an aspect of us. So that's again.
So it's us teaching us. It's like a shamanic type of equation. Let me ask you, you mentioned,
yes.
You mentioned, and of course, the pretty much the standard or typical, not for everybody, but the typical is, I was born this way, just like you said. You end up getting indoctrinated, and at some point on or about 2012, for about 80% of the people I've talked to, some are much long, going back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s even, and some are even in the last 2 or 3 years waking up or reawakening. So they typically, I'd say 80, 90%, have a trauma or a series of traumas that really kind of kicks them in the butt, and they start to hear that guidance, because of the depth of their experience. How did it go for you?
Well, my big awakening, I've had autoimmune disease since I was a little girl. So that's another, that's just number one empath thing. We all suffer those autoimmune diseases. But Lyme disease in 2014, 15, I was bedridden for a year. And I was having, such intense, vivid dreams. I would wake up in the middle of the night vibrating, or like someone was punching my bed. Sometimes we had a terrible entity in the house at the same time. So it was my big, big dark night of the soul for that year. And everything I took for granted, I took my health for granted. I couldn't stand for more than 2 hours. I couldn't play with my children. I just couldn't go to, anything that I wanted to do just for myself. Taking a bath was exhausting. Just getting up and walking that far to a bath and coming back to bed. It was excruciating pain and torture. And that year, all I did was study as much as I can. I couldn't even hold my phone sometimes, but I would just listen to YouTube. I'd listen to Edgar Cayce. I'd listen to Dolores Cannon and try to understand why I was so sick, because I tried everything else. I knew there was a spiritual cause at that point and where the angels led me. And I had prophetic dreams since I was a child, but I kind of pushed that all down into my 20s and 30s with drinking and partying and just living a wrong lifestyle and not living an awakened, empowered lifestyle. But those dreams came back full force. And I know now all of that pain that I went through and the lessons I learned led me to the path that I'm on. And so I bless my pain now, and Absolutely. That all of our pain has a purpose. And so it allows me to know how strong I am as well.
Yeah.
That no matter what, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to survive, and I'm going to get through it. And I have that faith now.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is the story of everybody here. This is where all the weird people hang out. But yeah, I call pain the dark love. Pain, not to be, wholly identified with sadness, with anger, with, that's the suffering. Pain is like you said, pain is it's a sacred blessing because it's brought us all to this point. Let me ask you, so you now, I think it's interesting too, and to point out, Franco had Lyme's disease.
Mm-hmm.
I met a lot of people that have a similar story to you, that Lyme's disease. My friend Kirsten Vambazet in Norway, she had Lyme disease. This was part of her transformation. Was your transformation running hand in hand with your healing of Lyme's disease, or where does that stand?
I think it all goes hand in hand. But it was one of my biggest tests, and it was karma from a past life. I was also told, past life with Jesus, in fact. But part of our pain, we have to realize, like Dolores teaches and Edgar Cayce teaches, that true healing is holistic, which mm-hmm. means coming from the mind, the body, and the soul. And what Big Pharma knows this, of course, and they do the opposite and just give us curses and poison and call it medicine somehow. And people, buy that. But it is me finding holistic, true healing of on all three levels, and mm-hmm. even going back into my past or parallel lives, you could say. I'm lucky to do surrogate sessions through my husband, but that's how when we start sharing our healing journeys and realize we're not victims. We're never a victim, because we choose all these things before we come here. First of all, too, on a grand level, that we realize these were things we needed to do and experience to learn and grow our soul and or balance karma. But awakening is it's a lifelong journey. It's like, it doesn't happen overnight. It took me a long time to get where I am. And where I am is a beautiful and blessed place. Like, I've been to the fifth dimension. I go to the higher dimensions. The most beautiful experience, I talked about this on the Jeff Mara show, was an out-of-body experience where I was taken into the galactic center. I saw myself laying in bed, I was meditating, and all of a sudden my body started dissolving. and I became a light being. I was just my light, and I shot through, like it was like Star Wars, like through portals at the speed of light. And all of a sudden I was at the galactic center, and I was with Source, and I saw all these other lights that looked like me, and they were coming and becoming one with Source. And when I got to this place, of course, it was pure peace. It was unconditional love. I was home. And at that time, Source shared with me my mission. And that was also, around the time of Lyme disease. And so, yeah, they all are going to lead you. This pain will lead you to your true self, basically, and to awakening when we address it.
Yeah.
And
And that story that you just told, I don't know the exact percentage, but you said you watch the show a little bit. Many people have said the same story in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
I've had the same experience more than once. And there's something about what's happening now that, people talk about embodying all this information. We're human for a reason, right? So if I look at what you're saying and what others talk about and where we're at in this transition, we planned all this. So we planned all the pain and the suffering in our individual lives, and all the individual lives create the collective experience. So for instance, if we refer to, you were just talking about Big Pharma. Well, Big Pharma is my creation. Big Pharma is my pain. Okay. That is my player. That is my playmate. I think there's been a lot of changes in the last year and a half. And I've noticed this in one capacity in talking to energy practitioners on this show, how their practitionership has changed, how their modalities have been modified, how they've been dropped, how new ones have been made, how the people coming in the door are more awakened, how their sessions are more expansive. And I just think we're getting to this point. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, where when are we going to start looking at Big Pharma and the oligarchy and the Vatican and so on as our playmates at a soul level? Because like you said, ascension is a lifelong, infinite, lifelong thing. But I think it even goes further than that. It's an infinite, a soul lifelong thing, isn't it?
Yes. Yep. We keep going back and forth from macro to micro. Let's go. It's all good. I definitely agree with what you're saying on a level. But so if we're talking to all sorts of people that are here, I would say fundamentally for them to understand that even if they don't understand everything that's going on, there is a divine plan and everything is in order. So we don't need to worry. We don't need to have fear. We need to just focus on embodying the highest version of ourselves, the best version of ourselves, which is the holiest version, and our higher self. And as long as we do that, we're manifesting new earth. We're doing our holy light work, our divine work, and we're helping humanity in the collective. And that's what's really exciting to me, and what is our key thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and then the old saying that's becoming more prominent, whether we like it or not, is stay in your own lane. The more time we spend, well, it's quite a paradigm shift within the paradigm shift, as we go from, let's just say healing others to healing ourselves. One of the things I hear a lot from practitioners now, and, I've heard my wife say it since I met her. Somebody comes to me as a practitioner once, maybe twice, and then a rare exception, maybe 3 times. That's it. I'm hearing these practitioners more and more say in their own words, one way or the other, I basically, they do it themselves. I just kind of show them to the door, and then everything takes. Have you experienced a change in your clientele over the last year and a half or so, where you're seeing more expansive sessions, more expanded people, and or newly awakened people coming in the door?
Yeah, definitely a lot of newly awakened I've seen in the past year, time frame, 2 years, whatever, since this started. But yeah, the awakening, that's what's we need to stay hopeful about, because so many people from a year or two ago that I know were asleep are, knowing so much more of what's going on in the matrix, knowing what the matrix is, knowing what empaths are, knowing what, you know, some more spiritual terminology and all these things that are good for us to know and to study. And whatever is calls to your soul is what I tell people. We should, you know, look for more of that, go towards that, let our heart guide us into this new space and new energies. And the energies are so intense now. Like, we are getting so much light, the Schumann resonance and all this, though we just went through that darkness, like we came through. And I've had such intense energies, it's like was giving me anxiety. And I'm like asking the angels, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much like intense energy, but I didn't know what to do with it. It was like overwhelming, but I'm getting accustomed to it and getting realigned to, you know, these new powerful high vibrations that are coming in and affecting the collective. But I do believe our soul families are being brought to us. So the clients that I have been brought are, you know, have been more of my soul family. It's like everyone they bring me, I ask at the end of a session now, do we know each other from past life? Every single one, we have known each other. And I just find that amazing and exciting.
I think that applies to all of us. I think we all know each other. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Let me ask you this, Gil. One of the things that has just naturally evolved from Soulogy, even from its origination, and it's just a reflection of the whole thing, you know, the micro and the macro, has been the power of the human experience. You know, we have two sayings, I am soul, and the other one is the human is the hero, because it's all about the human. And many of us have spent a lot of time, an inordinate amount of time, out in the ethers with the woo-woo, you know, and there's something about, we might call it the lesson or whatever you want to call it, that we are to embody, we are to be human, we are to see that which we think is outside of ourselves, which is all inside of ourselves. So one of the things that we do here that we share is, you know, that personal experience on a day-to-day basis. I'm curious, I'm always curious about how an individual such as yourself, who is so connected, how you deal with that human-esque part of this journey. And I'm talking about, like, what do you do when you get triggered? What did you do when you got that anxiety? How did you bring yourself into balance? How do you bring yourself into balance?
That's very good. And I didn't answer the most important part of your last question. About healing. What Spirit has taught me, all healing is self-healing. That's how placebo works. And what healers do is help, yes, we guide them into healing themselves, believing in healing themselves and that power within.
Yes.
But yes, what I did was play healing frequency when I felt this anxiety. Got my selenite crystals. I love selenite. I have them all through the house as a crystal grid. They're amazing. I have one. Nope, I have my Lemurian here. But so healing frequency is my go-to. I play it almost throughout the day. In my healing room, I can sit on this lounger or couch, and my Alexa's right there and actually vibrates the whole couch. So like I feel the vibration going in me, and then I'll pray and meditate. I'll light incense and I'll do all these things if I was triggered, you know, just the same. And self-talk is really important if I'm triggered with like a pain or a trauma, which I have worked through so much of my pain and trauma. So I very rarely get triggered. So it shows my, you know, evolution, and I deal with my triggers much more beautifully instead of crying in bed for days. And
so there's a couple. Oh, there's an echo. There's an aspect of me on the other side. So the other thing is shadow. You know, you talked about the energies coming down. You know, we can call it purging. We can call it the light, you know, shining on the shadows. You know, we're all experiencing the same thing. It's becoming a very even playing field, whether we, you know, we want to throw out connotations of asleep or not asleep. Like so many people, I'm just talking about even just this month. This month has just been incredible. Showing being shown shadow we didn't know we had, blind spots. Yep. Some people getting really rocked physically or emotionally or mentally or all of the above. How do you deal with discovering new shadow? And also I'd be interested to know, because you're a practitioner, do you seek that shadow or does it just show itself to you?
I don't think I seek the shadow. I wouldn't say it like that. I address it if it shows up. And I feel that's, the best way to deal with it, other than during a healing session. We are going to address the shadow right away as soon as possible and see how we can bring it light and healing. But the shadow work is so important. And even when I first heard that word, I'm like, ooh, that's scary. Like, it's a scary word. What is, before I understood what it was. But we all have that, and it's key to healing and awakening is, healing the shadow, reincorporating the shadow, or the ego, I would call it. And that's part of our biggest test as a human here, is dissolving the ego, understanding the ego, all these different terminology I guess you can use for it, transmuting it, and rediscovering our true power and our highest self, or that the balance of who we are meant to be. Because the ego does serve a purpose at times, even for like our survival. But other than that, the ego tries to trap us and keep us in low vibration, or keep us, not loving ourselves, or not, thinking we're not good enough and not worthy, when we are, and we always are, and we are loved unconditionally and infinitely. And that was one of the most important things that people need to know. When you feel alone, and when you feel triggered, or you feel like, your world is caving in, that this is really at a level, this is all illusion. It's just a game. It's just a movie we're in. But no storm lasts forever, and you will get through it, and you will be stronger because of the storm. But again, the purpose for our pain and the purpose for the storm is, to make us stronger. And I believe
I got you. Yeah, this is all well received. There's been, over the last, really even further, but I'm going to say the last couple of years, there's been talk, the reptilians have been, and this is all metaphor coming from Todd. Okay. The reptilians have been shot off the planet. The archons are gone. One of the easiest ways for me to really visualize that is, there's quite a few people, including Mateus's version, Franco's version, and so on, that post-Atlantis, we as a collective decided to up the ante in polarity in this experience on the home stretch, or in this phase. And that there was then an inverted matrix rather than an organic matrix put into place, which was basically utilized through the implant of the ego. Okay. Now, one way or another, I would say several, strong, high frequency people, and I'm just saying this too, also just from my own feel and what I've observed, is that this inverted matrix projection was turned off on or about January 2020, which, lo and behold, that's right before COVID comes out, right? And that the only perpetuation of that, let's just say, that type of inverted or distorted frequency is only now occurring in our egos, okay, which are no longer being supported by a central projection. Now, in just to kind of conclude that and to set up the question, basically, energetically, that this transformation collectively to include Mother Earth and all the universal is occurring. Let go or be dragged. It's by force or by flow. And so it's getting better and better every moment of every day in all ways, regardless of what the distortion looks like. What are your thoughts on that?
I do believe we're on the up and up, and the light is winning. And, I like to tell people, stop fighting the dark and start building the light, instead of, all these people that are still stuck in different programs of the matrix, even though they're going up, they're moving up. Like, I'm not stuck in any politics. I'm not debating online with people. I'm just focusing on my mission, which is empowering, bringing light, love, and wisdom. And I'm not saying I ignore what's going on in the world either. At the same time, I'm, paying attention. I'm just not letting it consume me or obsess about these things. and see it from the bigger perspective. I know like the Vatican has already fallen. It's just a facade. And I can tell you, the angels wanted me to tell you about a dream that I had recently, was showing me, you know, it basically confirming, I was in my childhood home and it was like bombed or it blew up and it was on fire. And I'm like, oh no, where am I going to live? And I went in to like save what was good. I saved my cats, of course, to grab those first, and then grabbed out some other things that were important and special. But I was like, what am I going to do, God? Where will I go? And all of a sudden it changed scenes. And I was at my grandfather's house, and he has passed on. He was there as an angel, and he was giving me food. He was giving me things that I needed, and I knew I could live there. So breaking this down, the angels were showing us evil is being destroyed, because my childhood home was possessed and very evil and dark place for me. That represented evil. And I went to my grandfather's house that represented the light side polarity, and that we will be provided for and we will be protected, and that we need to trust and believe that and understand that going forward, which again, fear is just such a trap, and we can't fall into it or be deceived, because you know, people are afraid they're going to lose their jobs and lose all of these things. Ways will be provided, and we need to trust that. So,
kind of like our own journeys through these traumas, like yours with Lyme disease, and of course the shadow work too. You know, and I keep going this micro to macro, because we know it's in the micro that makes the macro, even though it's a paradoxical 0-point field. But are we to love our shadow?
Yes.
And if we're to love our shadow, then why wouldn't we love our shadow as within, without? Are we to love the Vatican? Are we to love Big Pharma? Are we to love the reptilians and the archons and so on? What are your thoughts?
Yes. Love is the answer to everything, to all of that. Love is the highest vibration, I will say. And it is. I give love and show respect even to demons, just how Matthias Stefano, whatever his name is, now I butchered it. And
I butcher him all the time. I butcher everybody's name. I'll butcher your name. I can't even remember what
Denali
it is.
Veda. Yeah, Denali Veda. And
that's not too bad.
No. But and that was Denali is my middle name, which is named after the mountain in Alaska. And it's a First Nations word, and it means the great one. It's like another name for God, and Veda is from the Hindu Vedas. So I combined, even though Denali is my middle name, but I combined like indigenous with the Hindu and bridging. You know, I'm here to start bridging all of the religious views and back into the spiritual view, back into the shamanic view, which is the true path. And what, so I call myself like a modern shaman, and we're creating new rituals. And even the way that I do the hypnotherapy is much more a shamanic way, as I use crystals and holy oils and incense. And, but it was all taught to me by the angels, actually. Archangel Gabriel taught me the techniques that I'm doing and introducing in this way into my healing. It's very, very powerful.
How do we love our shadow? How do we love? I think loving our shadow, we've made some progress. But how do we love those things that have been so polarizing, you know, such as the things I mentioned, things that are on the collective, the things that we share from our apparent collective experience? How do we love those things? How does that work?
We got to see it as everything is one, and everything is a branch or an aspect of us. And understanding loving our shadow is important, and it is a part of us. So when we look at it macroly, that we are all one, we are all connected. And as Martin Luther King said, like any suffering or any injustice anywhere, we should care about, we should worry about. And Source has, you know, described how we are all one as like Source is the head of an octopus. And then, you know, all the different universes and people, those are all just different legs that we're a part of, but we're still all one at our core, even though we don't see this in this 3D dimension. So loving the shadow, send love to your enemy, just like Jesus told us. We are supposed to bless our enemy and understand, you know, whatever they did to hurt us, to betray you. I mean, I've had, you know, plenty of that in my life, trials and tribulations, not just the Lyme disease that I've gone through. And it takes time. It'll take time. You have to forgive them. And then you have to understand they didn't know any better. And it was all above that, something we agreed to, something we planned to experience. So how can we be mad? We'd have to be mad at ourselves then. And then
it is, we are being mad at ourselves.
Yes, and we are, exactly. It's everything is a mirror. Everyone is a mirror. So it's just love is just the answer when we realize yes.
No, I'm just saying, I know. It's like I'm a big believer that we're creating new universal code now. Like we were getting all these downloads and everything to get to a certain level of awareness. And now we're trying to figure this shift out, and how do you love the Vatican? How do you love the ill-intended programming that's in our face? And now we know what it is, which we didn't say 50 years ago. How do you do that? How do we do that? I mean, is it really coming down to ourselves? I mean, as within, without. Is it going to be that? Does it feel like that to you? I mean, I'm just curious, again, because you've been in the game a while, you've been a practitioner, you've run a lot of these sessions, and I know there's a lot of different information that comes in there. But like everything else, to me, it's like a fortune being told on that particular day, a snapshot. And just as an example, I've seen many QHHT or QBQ, whatever, talk about the solar flash that was supposed to happen 2 years ago.
Yes, I don't.
Okay, so I'm not saying that in our in a specific simulation or 2 or 3 or 10 or 100 that didn't happen, but we're in what we might call the one true timeline, which is our presence in this moment. And a lot of things have accelerated to include how long does it take us, like you were talking about, how long does it take us to receive, process, and embody and go on? Like you were saying, and a lot of people can say the same thing, where you're not as affected for as long a period of time. My wife and I were talking just briefly before this show. She was just getting up in Australia, and I'm like, how do you feel? And she's like, I feel kind of sad. I feel like crying. And she's actually on the move today and elevating, coming out of a major elevation. And she just we were talking, and then she goes, well, it just could just be what's the collective energy that's coming. And it's funny because I got off the phone with her, and then I read her a note. I said, now that you mentioned that, I feel like crying. I feel kind of heavy. Yes. And it is what it is today. Right. Like it's just like this thing about, it's not about tomorrow. It's not about obviously the past. We've kind of worked on that, all of us. But do you think it's just coming down to our own self-work, so to speak?
It is all about our own self-work. It's all about our own hero journey. And triggers, I just want to say about that, triggers are a sign that you need healing. So whenever we're triggered, but it also could have been something else outside that she was feeling collectively too. So if we are feeling that, we transmute it, and that's why we're feeling it, so that we can shift the energies and bring it back up, because we are here to transmute and bring more light. But the people that give dates, and that solar flare thing, I was laughing because I was arguing with people, online, and about that, and because what the angels were telling me, they're like, we don't know the date, over and over, because things are always in flux. And that's why even in Revelations and other times, they don't give us exact dates. And that's what I say to be wary of when we're listening to channelings, or we're listening to whoever, wherever the information is coming from, when they give us exact dates. And the time is different to the angels in the angelic realm and the spirit realm. So I always, like, when I want to manifest something, or I'm like, oh, can we do this sooner? Like they don't have that, time is like infinite to them, or just, we can't even understand it, how they experience time. It's an illusion here in the 3D world, basically. So I, over and over, the flash, I do believe will happen, but I don't know when. But I think it's within 20 years. There's also supposed to be some big events coming and happening, but we will be taken before that, before big cataclysms and all of that. We'll be in the other dimension by then, so we won't be affected by that. But it depends. Each individual depends when you're going to go. You know, do you make it to New Earth? Are you going to make it in this lifetime?
I thought we were on New Earth. I'm on New Earth.
Yeah. Not everybody.
And I welcome what a human might call a catastrophe, because I'm energy. I don't care if it's a big fire of the whole earth, and you know, we're fire. We're just this belief system thinking that we'll be burned. I mean, I don't know. If I go to the solar flash thing, I'm like, I don't think it's going to happen, period. You know, and if it does happen, is it going to be the universe winking at us, you know, or is it going to be Jesus coming down on a chariot, or is it actually us? Am I the solar flash? You know, in my, and again, in that spiral that you're talking about, that infinite ascending spiral, does it happen over and over and over and over? You know,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter. Does a solar flash happen or not? Like, we need to continue to focus on our journey. And so people are having anxiety about this, you know, that's just another way to distract you or trap you or keep you from evolving. That if we should manifest, you know, maybe we don't want it to happen if that's what you're worried about. But either way, it's really not going to matter. There's no such thing as death. You know, death is an illusion. We just change forms. But you know, I'm in contact with the Agarthans, and I'm an ambassador of the Agarthans, and they've been teaching me things, and I'm getting ready to put all of their teachings, and I'm like, they're still teaching me, and it's a lot to dive through, and I'm learning, you know, as I go with them, the things that they're trying to teach me. But they want everyone to know that they're there and that they will be returning, and humanity has to prepare to meet like the celestial beings, the, you know, who we call aliens, who we call angels and demons, you know, all just boxes we want to put them in, that we used to walk among them. You know, we used to all live together. And that's what New Earth is. We are going to be a true, like, universal community again, and be with the ascended masters again, and who have been watching over us and guiding us for so long. And it's our job in this matrix is to basically we are being tested. Understand we are being tested, and these tribulations are tests to prove, you know, we are ready for this next level of humanity and evolution. And we messed up the Garden of Eden before, and we can't mess it up again. So to get back in, we got to do these tests. We got to find our power. We got to heal, and we got to be the embodiment of the highest.
Yeah. Right on. Right on. Okay. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you. It's a pleasure sharing space from Indiana to Arkansas.
Oh, Arkansas, beautiful.
Yeah, I'm over in Arkansas in the Crystal Beds. I just want to say again, thank you for coming in and honoring us with your presence and sharing space with us and being open with us up close and personal. I wish you and your family all blessings always, and endless gratitude, love, and respect, and reverence and honor. And you just keep doing it, keep shining, and we'll catch you again on this side, the other side, or both.
Oh, every side. I'm there. I'm there with you. Thank you for all your work. You are such a bright light worker, an amazing being, and it's been an honor to finally connect with you again. And but we're always connected.
There you go. Peace out.